Hello everyone, welcome to the 60 Literary and Jury Charge. We're going to start off with a narrative answer. Ready? I was driving down the highway on my way to work. I travel that road every day. There was nothing unusual about the day in question, except, unfortunately, it was the day the defendant hit my car. I would say I was going approximately 55. I know everyone always says that, but it's the truth. I was going the speed limit. I rarely speed. Maybe if I'm late, I might go 57 or 58. Ask anyone who knows me. They'll tell you too. My best friends make fun of me and tell me that I drive like an old woman. I have never even gotten a ticket in my life. I try to do the right thing, but he hit me, and now my car is totaled. All right. I did forget to give you guys the brief for unfortunately. That's UFRL. So U and then final FRL. It's a great brief to jot down. Okay, I'm going to give you some criminal jury charge. Okay, you're going to hear independent, which is IND. Statement, ST long A M T. Defendant, DEFT. Acknowledge, AK, come back for NOL. Other than is AON. And let's see, I think that's it as far as the briefs go that I see right here. All right, so here we go. I'll read this at 60 words per minute. Ready? A confession is a statement made by a defendant other than at his trial, in which he has acknowledged his guilt of crimes for which he is on trial, in order to constitute a confession. Such a statement must acknowledge participation in the crimes as well as the required criminal intent. A statement made by a defendant other than at his trial is not a confession, but an admission whenever the statement does not by itself acknowledge his guilt of the crimes for which he is on trial, but which tends to prove his guilt when considered with the rest of the evidence of an oral admission or confession of the defendant ought to be viewed with caution. You are the exclusive judges as to whether an admission or a confession was made by the defendant and whether the statement is true in whole or in part. If you should find that such a statement is entirely untrue, you must reject it. If you find that it is true in part, you may consider that part which you find to be true. No person may be convicted of a criminal offense unless there is some proof of each element of the crime independent of any confession or admission made by him outside of this trial. The identity of the person who is alleged to have committed a crime is not an element of the crime, nor is the degree of the crime. Such identity or degree of the crime may be established by an admission or confession. Remember that your first duty is to determine that a crime has been committed. You must do that before you can consider whether the defendant made a confession or admission and whether such admission or confession is true. All right. I have a technical answer for you, and I am going to give you a word list. You're going to hear combustible, deteriorate, pyrolytic, decomposition, chemical, and charring. All right, here is your paragraph. Ready? When prolonged heating is aimed against something combustible, we call that pyrolytic action. Anything that will burn is combustible. Pyrolytic action begins to deteriorate that combustible material and cause charring. If it is wood, it will form a charcoal film. Over a long amount of time, the pyrolytic action will break down the tissue of that wood so that it will ignite at possibly as low as 100 degrees. All right. We're going to finish off our article on the face transplant that we started in the last literary jury charge class. Okay, all right, here we go. Ready? Dr. Mardini urged him to think very hard about the transplant. Only about 24 operations had been done worldwide in the past. He wanted Sandness to understand the risks and lifelong regimen of taking anti-rejection drugs. After researching the surgery, Sandness had some concerns about the side effects of the drugs, but was still undeterred and knew he wanted to go for it. When you look like I looked, and you function like I function, every little bit of hope that you have, you just jump on it, he says. And this was the surgery that was going to take me back to normal. He knew he had to jump on this amazing opportunity. Sandness had to undergo a rigorous psychiatric and social work evaluation to address, among other things, should this surgery be done on someone who had attempted suicide in the past. There were several factors that weighed in his favor: his resilience and motivation, his strong family support, his long-standing rapport with Dr. Mardini, and the length of time since the shooting took place. Then, last June, 5 months after his name was added to the waiting list of the United Network for Organ Sharing, he got the word that a donor was available for him. Kalen, otherwise known as Rudy Ross, had fatally shot himself. His devastated 19-year-old widow, Lily, was 8 months pregnant. Despite her overwhelming grief, she carried out her husband's wishes to be an organ donor. She met with a coordinator from Life Source, a non-profit group that helps families in the upper Midwest facilitate organ and tissue donation. Ross's heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys were donated. Additional screening determined he was a good match for a man awaiting a face transplant. In a second conversation, Life Source broached the idea. I was skeptical at first, Lily says. I didn't want to walk around and all of a sudden see Kaylin. She was reassured because the donor had his own eyes and forehead and wouldn't be recognizable as her husband. The Mayo's medical team, which had rehearsed the surgery for 3.5 years with cadaver heads, gathered one June night to start the 56-hour marathon. It took about 24 hours to procure the donor's face, which involved taking bone, muscle, skin, and nerves, and almost the same time to prepare Sandness. His face was rebuilt below his eyes, taking an additional 32 hours. Having a nose and mouth are blessings, he says. The looks are a bonus. He and Lily Ross have been in contact. She wanted him to know about her husband. Last fall, she wrote to Sandness describing Ross as a giving person who loved hunting and trapping. Sandness replied with a note of appreciation. When Lily later saw photos of Sandness, she learned the two men shared a passion for the outdoors. They even stood the same way in photos. Sandness, now 31, is thrilled to eat steak and pizza again. Recently, he attended a hockey game where he says he was just another face in the crowd. Just thinking about that makes him smile. Neat article there. All right, well, that concludes our jury and literary for the 60 class. Have a great day.